One last dance for Kelly and Wrighty for this season at least. What a season it's been. So close for Arsenal, but just not to be.
Not to be, Kels. It's the hope that kills you, but the Gunners will be back.
Manchester City did lift the title for a record fourth time in a row. It's Pep Guardiola's sixth Premier League crown. He says the club has achieved the impossible. So is this City side the best of all time?
I had everything crossed for the final day, but Arsenal just fell short. Mikel Arteta has promised the fans that he will bring the title back to Arsenal, and I believe him.
Well, what an emotional day it was at Anfield, talking of believers, where Jurgen Klopp said goodbye after 9 years at Liverpool. We paid tribute to one of the Premier League's greatest managers.
And we'll be doing our own Kelly and Wrighty End of Season Awards. See if you agree with my choices.
We have had some huge highs over the last 9 months or so. You've got the fight in you to go again next season?
I've always got the dog and the fight in me, Kels. The title race nearly finished me off, though. I can't lie.
You might not want to watch this. And this is it, your final Premier League table. Manchester City won their final 9 games to clinch their 4th consecutive title. Arsenal finished runners-up for the 2nd season in a row. Liverpool and Aston Villa secured the other 2 Champions League spots. And then Tottenham and Chelsea are guaranteed European football. Newcastle will go into the Europa Conference League if Manchester City beat Manchester United in the FA Cup final. United's 8th place finish, their worst in Premier League history. David Moyes leaves West Ham with Julen Lopetegui set to replace him. Crystal Palace finished in the top 10 after a blistering end to the season. And for just the 2nd time in Premier League history, all 3 promoted sides have been relegated. Sheffield United conceded 104 goals in the end. That is the most in a Premier League season. Nottingham Forest 2-1 win at Burnley on the final day means they stay up by 6 points, so comfortable in the end. Brighton finish 11th after just 1 win in the last 10 games. Manager Roberto De Zerbi is leaving the club after 70 games in charge. So big changes for some clubs over the summer, and with us to look back on what's been an incredible season, as always, Michael Owen, Nader Manua and Darren Lewis is here. But let's start with what was a great weekend for goals. It had a proper end-of-season feel to it. It was loads of things were already sorted. There was sunshine about, and players just looked
free,
relaxed and free. Exactly.
They did. Yeah, it was good to see. Saw some great goals. Obviously, especially this one here. His first goal for Chelsea, Caicedo, Moises Caicedo. See, and that's not as easy as people think, because it comes to you very quickly. You want to hit it a long way, and you have to get the technique right. And it's a great goal. It's a great end-of-season goal to score.
Yeah, but also
right, when that went in, right, did you think Cole Palmer had scored it, first of all? If someone scored from the halfway line at Chelsea, I think it's Cole Palmer.
I'm pleased for him.
Sorry,
Eze went
no,
crazy.
I was just going to say that, and Eze's goal is a really good goal, but really it just sort of sums up Crystal Palace and their end to the season and the way the players have been performing. But this one, Nadim, to open the scoring, or to get Manchester City on their way to that 4th consecutive title, and to be cool in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible strike. And the thing is, we've seen it happen a few times as well. Obviously, there was a bit of tension in the stadium when Kudus decided to do this.
Yeah.
But, you know, you guys are right. Some of the goals that we saw yesterday and just throughout the season have really been spectacular.
Yeah.
They have been spectacular, and there's not a striker's goal really in there in that selection of them, Michael. Not really
no defenders' goals either, I'll be honest.
I hate it. It's easy to do that.
But look, the title race went right down to the wire. It starts to feel a little bit inevitable with a couple of weeks to go when it's in Manchester City's hands, and we know what they've got in the tank. But 4 in a row is unprecedented. How much of an achievement is it for them to just keep going?
Well, quite incredible, as you say. It's never been done before. It's one thing winning a title, which is hard enough, but keeping that motivation, keeping that, you know, the changeover as well. I mean, the team that won the title 4 years ago, you know, it's not that recognisable compared to the team that probably started yesterday. So to keep that change going, the consistency of the manager. Of course, I mean, he's the one constant, isn't he? I mean, if you've got Pep Guardiola as your manager, you've got a great chance.
Beast.
Well, and I was about to say the only
game.
chance I feel at the moment for anybody else to get a look in. Because I do feel that if Arsenal went and got 95 points, City would have got 96. I mean, it happened the other year when, did Liverpool get 97 or 98 or something?
Yeah.
They've just got more gears than everybody else. And all of a sudden, at some point during the season, it might be January, it might be February, all of a sudden, they think, right, we've got to kick into gear now. Just look at all the times they've won the league. They just go on this run, rather like Manchester United used to do when I was growing up. Yeah. It's just, they're unbeatable for a period of time. So I just think until Pep Guardiola leaves, which might not be long, then everybody's playing catch-up.
We should, in case anybody hasn't heard that, is what Pep Guardiola said at the end of the game, which is that he's closer to leaving than staying, and his contract is up at the end of next season. So there is a little bit of speculation about his future, and we will come to that. But what, as Michael said, what's been impressive about Manchester City under Guardiola has been the evolution and, you know, the sort of constant innovation on the pitch from him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when he first came to the Premier League, a few people said he wasn't going to be successful because he has a style of play, this tiki-taka that won't work in the Premier League.
Which he always hated, that tag,
exactly,
didn't he?
It's almost like a slur. So, this tiki-taka is nonsense. Yeah. But I think over these last 4 years in particular, the style of football's changed. I think you can look at times where maybe you had like a Cancelo, the fullback, coming into midfield. Then last season you're looking at a centre-back coming into midfield. Then this year there were more times where it's like Kovacic and Rodri in there, and Rodri's now scoring maybe 10 goals in the league. I think he's got an understanding that the league is constantly changing. You can't be successful next year with what you did this year. And I think that's something that gives them just that little bit of an advantage at times, because some teams are trying to achieve what City are doing. But I think he has a sort of different vision. For me, that's why he's my favourite manager of all time.
And favourite is a...
You see, I chose my word. I chose my word. I chose my word.
I heard it, Nathan.
Thank you. I appreciate you listening. He's my favourite, yes.
Because I think the argument about best is often just kind of... It's a starting point for debate, isn't it? Because there's no way that you can categorically say this manager is the best, that manager is the best. But favourite is the one that like you appreciate everything that he's done more than anyone else's.
100%. And I think you can make it. If you said the best, people try and make an argument against it. Cool. You say the favourite, it says, well, your opinion's wrong. Well, I like what I like. Yeah. And it's the same with the sort of Ronaldo and Messi debates and so on. Like, Messi's my favourite player of all time, but I can understand why other people would choose otherwise.
Yeah. I think doing four on a spin is you're probably the best. I think as a manager, because like you say, it's continuously changing that dressing room, but the mentality of the players stay the same. And it's him who's driving that. You've got to have something very, very special. You know what I mean? I would probably go in the best camp. I'd go in the best camp.
That was right saying that, by the way.
I'd love to do the best argument.
That's right,
because
no.
I'd fight for it. I'd fight for Pep. I'd fight for Pep.
What about the team, Darren? Is it the best team that the Premier League have seen, or does that again come down to preference?
I think it does come down to preference, sorry.
That's fine.
I think the interesting thing about the team is that lots of people talk about City blowing other teams out of the water. But if you just go through the team, the keeper they finished with, he came from Arminia Belfield. He wasn't a stellar signing from another top Premier League or European club. Kyle Walker was at Spurs. They didn't want him. John Stones, Chelsea had first run at him for quite some time and just didn't bid what Everton wanted at the time. City went in, were decisive, and they got him for not much more. And if you go around the team, there are individuals. Maro Akanji was offered to a number of Premier League clubs who decided they didn't want him. Julian Alvarez, West Ham, had the chance to sign him, said we don't fancy him. So he went to City. So there are lots of players within that. Goodness me, Kevin De Bruyne. Chelsea didn't want Kevin De Bruyne. So,
Chelsea had form at that stage. Chelsea didn't want Mo Salah.
But you have to recognise.
Exactly. And I think the point around City winning the league as well, it has to be made as well that Arsenal, had they won one game in 5 in December, right? They were masters of their own destiny. Even when they played Aston Villa, they were leading. Had they won that game, they probably would have gone on to win it. Liverpool led the league in April and self-destructed. So City are the best team. They've come out on top. They've got the most experience and they have done a fantastic job. But I think there's one or two misconceptions around the best. And that's why it's a good question that you ask, because I think, are they the best team? Were they the best coached team? And the sum of the parts is outstanding. But I think if you don't have Guardiola to pull all of that together, then I don't think they achieve what they do.
And you talk about the sort of collection of players and what they're able to do, but it's not just about the fact that they can perform on the pitch, it's that they can do it in such intense situations. And to maintain, we talk about the evolution, as Nathan was mentioning there, but to have that hunger season upon season to want to go and win more trophies, that's special as well, to still care as much season after season, to be able to...
Obviously, City and Kyle Walker's had it what, 4 times, 6 times now, Kyle?
6.
6 times now, Kyle. So he knows what that's about. But again, what we're talking about, the manager and what the manager's able to continually get out of these players. And like I say, I watched that treble documentary again the other day, and I was in awe. Deep they have to go. And it's not their fault.
No.
That, like, Liverpool obviously got the injuries, what they got, and then they brought the kids in for a while. It looked like they were going to stay there, but then they got broken. Same with Arsenal. You go to a certain level and you think, right, this is in our hands now. But if you slip up, we see that City will win. And that's what they've done with when it was, 31 games and 9 games, won 9 games on the spin. Yeah. So there's opportunities to beat them, because we're not saying that they blasted everybody all season. You know what I mean? They beat who they needed to beat, and they beat them sometimes 1-0, whatever it took. Drew, if they needed to draw. But, like, what the other teams, like what Arsenal have to learn is recognise that, especially that Villa game, recognise that. You have to recognise where you are in respect of not losing it. Yeah. If you're not going to win it, not losing it.
But what Michael's saying is, even if Arsenal had won that game, even if they didn't lose some of the games that they did lose, Manchester City would still have a bit more to go a little bit better than them and just keep staying narrowly ahead.
Yeah, but we know they've got that, but then we need to see Arsenal put them in the situation so as we can see them do that. Yes, we've seen them do it, but this is what Arsenal's learning's got to be, is, OK, we know they're capable of doing that, but we've got to make sure that you've got to ask the question.
Yeah, we will come to what's next for Arsenal, because you're racing. You're racing ahead of us at the moment. But before we do that, I want to talk about the future for Manchester City and hear from their manager, Pep Guardiola.
What can I say? So it wasn't expected. When I landed here, even now I'm telling him, OK, Pep, land in Manchester, and the next 7 years you're going to win 6 Premier Leagues. What? So this is not going to happen, no? So 6, 6 is, we are like Chicago Bulls, They did 6, we did 6, so it's a lot, because it's every week, during many, many years, so proud.
Well, he's proud of his team, but as we said, he did mention afterwards, when he was asked about his contract that's up at the end of next season, that he's closer to leaving than he is to staying. Would that... let's ask Nader. Does that concern you?
It doesn't concern me as such, purely because of how good he's been to this point. And I think, as was the case with Klopp and other managers in the past, they've done so well that, like, when they leave, you'll feel sadness, but you'll understand why they're leaving. If he needs to have a break, because everything that we've spoken about in the show so far, we're talking about a team that plays 60 games a season, knowing that, like, a bad couple of weeks could cost them everything. And for him to be able to manage a side and be creating plans and to be in there, like, respectfully, we all know, like, players work hard. Managers are there longer, you know what I mean? Like, they're in there from early. They're having to face scrutiny on the other side of things, picking players, disappointing players, having to manage that squad, because that's sort of... that side of harmony as well, about managing the squad in those moments, is also key. Yeah. So I think if he was to leave, I think people from a City perspective will probably feel the same way Liverpool did about Jurgen Klopp leaving yesterday. But I think one big change is, from when he first came in to now, he's created a new culture at the football club, and nobody will be able to really be who he is in the club. But I believe the job that would be there after he leaves is one which is far more desirable than it would have been, say, the 7-8 years ago when he first came. Yeah. I think that's the key thing for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there is that they would want to have that kind of style of continuity to kind of keep that Manchester City machine running smoothly as it has been doing. What do you think, Darren? Is it starting to feel like this is going to be the farewell season for Pep Guardiola?
It's an interesting
Have we got another season of a farewell tour, basically, exactly. Is what I'm asking.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I think, yes. On the other hand, he's a terrific negotiator, because the minute he says that, everyone at City say to themselves, oh, my goodness, we've got to get whatever he needs to keep him at the club. Or they think to themselves, should we be thinking about looking maybe at Xabi Alonso or someone else around Europe who can come and maintain the high standard, the culture that Guardiola's managed to establish at the club? I think that culture speaks for a lot, and the people that are there already, that it's very hard to chisel away at that if it's so ingrained. I remember over years we always came to grow up with United as being the side you never gave up on because of the culture established by Sir Alex Ferguson, and subsequently they've become the team you can't trust because those values have eroded, but they're being built into what City are trying to do. And I think what he probably would look to do is leave them in a really good place so that whoever did take over would be able to maintain those values.
I think it's interesting what you've both said there, because, Nadim, you're saying it's a much more attractive job than it would have been pre-Guardiola, and that you're both saying he's leaving the club in a great place in order for a new manager to build on. But when you mentioned Xabi Alonso there, one of the reasons that he was reported not to have been interested in the Liverpool job was the challenge of succeeding a Jurgen Klopp. Now, the challenge of succeeding a Pep Guardiola is a huge one as well. Do you think there might be a sort of reticence, especially when we see what happened with Unai Emery after Arsene Wenger in particular, and maybe to a lesser extent with David Moyes after Sir Alex Ferguson, that managers might be a bit nervous about thinking, yeah, I would happily take on Pep Guardiola's mantle, give it to me.
That's always a problem. I mean, you flip it on the other side, you'd probably love the Chelsea job for the last 5 or 6 years because everybody keeps failing in recent times. And you'd love the Manchester United job probably for the last 10 years after Moyes failed and Van Gaal failed and Mourinho failed and whatever. So you'd have thought that the next one is going to get it right at Manchester United, because these big clubs can't continue struggling forever. My biggest question, I guess, for Nedum as well, is that it's not just the manager. I mean, when Sir Alex Ferguson left, David Gill left as well, and a lot of people think that was as big a problem as Ferguson leaving. But of course, cheeky, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and that's where I'm going with this. It doesn't feel like when Pep goes, it'll just be Pep. It feels like it might be one or two key operators behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I think that is fair, and that is something which I'm a bit concerned about, because he's somebody behind the scenes who's so respected up and down the club, and so many changes that he's made across the board that literally makes them look the way they do today compared to when he first came in. And I think that sort of upheaval and change, should it happen, it shouldn't necessarily be catastrophic, because I think their idea is to leave it in a position whereby the next person to come in has the ability to do a good job. I think at times when we see certain managers and directors leave, they're kind of leaving a mess behind. And I think the point that Michael's making was a really good one. It should be good to come in at United because Van Gaal failed, because Moyes failed. But there's also a reason why those people were failing. And in the same way that at City you have Cheeky Begiristain, you've also got a bunch of players and a culture of the football club where at times they don't need to be motivated by the manager. They're motivated themselves because of the culture that exists there. So I think the Cheeky one would be a big, big miss for them. And it might not be the same version of City, but there's potential for someone to still be able to do a good job, I'd say.
Yeah, and we'll have lots of time to talk about that and what next for Manchester City. But what we know right now is that they've won 4 straight Premier League titles. That's 6 for that group of players, or certainly that group of players that have been there the time with Pep Guardiola. But what next for Arsenal? Let's hear from their boss, Mikel Arteta.
I think now it's time to have a break, think, reflect, and please keep pushing, keep inspiring this team. Don't be satisfied, because we want much more than that, and we're gonna get it. Thank you so much.
Just as an aside, I do love that Arsenal do that. Everything that happens in the ground is accompanied by someone who is signing and just kind of makes everything more accessible. And listening to what Mikel Arteta had to say, and he's promising that Arsenal will win the Premier League title. I mean, you touched on it earlier about what they might need to do to just be able to get... It's only 2 points different. It's only 2 points difference. But it's 2 points difference with City pushing you all the way.
Pushing you all the way. And again, it's like when you look at Mikel, you could just see the steely determination that he's ready to go again. He's literally a disciple of what Pep's doing. And when you look at what Pep's doing, and again, you know, they've done it 4 times now, and he still has the same drive and energy. And he knows that Mikel is coming, and he's coming with that same energy because he knows the levels he's going to have to bring just to try and compete with this guy. And this is why, again, when you talk about Pep, and if Pep left, you know, obviously it's going to be a manager of real stature, but like, are they going to have that same drive and obsession that Pep has? What I feel is now which Mikel has, because for the last 2 seasons, finishing second to Manchester City, it will take its toll at some stage on your mental, your resolve in keeping going. And this is why you have to admire Pep and what he's done with that team, because they have kept going and they look strong. And I think that Mikel knows what Arsenal are going to have to achieve. And this is why you look at him as a manager and you think He has to have the same determination and drive as Pep. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to challenge him. And then it's up to Edu and them to now make the right decisions on who they let go, who they bring in, because it's going to be tough. And he said he's going to bring the Premier League to Arsenal. I believe that he will, but it might take another couple of years. But I think that we've definitely got the right guy in respects of the fight. You know.
Yeah, lots of reports that a striker is the number one priority for us. And I don't think they need to have insider knowledge to kind of work that one out.
I do understand that, Kel, simply because in some of the games we're just talking, and, you know, some games where it's really tight, like we can go back to the Villa game, we can go back to any of those games that Arsenal lost. If you had that striker who can get that goal out of nothing, it settles you down, you get the goal, and you know you've got somebody who could take a half chance. It's worth its weight in gold. It gets the whole team settled, you relax, and then you can start playing. But if you continually missing chances at a stage at the season where Arsenal were and none of the front guys were scoring, that then you start to feel the pressure in the team. And that is what you cannot do against City. You have to be able to score the goals. Now, we did score goals. We scored a lot of goals this season. But I'm talking about changing games and changing the way you're playing the game.
Who is that, though? And from an Arsenal perspective, are you not concerned about if that striker goes against your style of play as such, which has made you, as dominant as, say, you have been for long parts of that season?
No, but Nathan, I think that they will definitely look at somebody who can fit into a very technically organised side, a team that can stretch. And, you know, there's a lot of talk about what's happening with Isak and Gimenez and Newcastle. But you look at Isak, and you can say, yeah, you could probably see someone like him at Arsenal, the way he plays. The way he plays, the way he can link, and the way that Mikel will probably want him to play in that team if it was him, or a player of that stature. But we need somebody, first and foremost, who's going to take the half chance.
But you're both strikers. If you go into that
me
team,
for a second. I've not been close.
You see your eyes twitching.
what sort of
But I can be.
tonight, Darren? I'm going to.
Right, I'll miss.
Do you think they need a 6-yard box poacher, or do you think they need an Isak who is going to stretch the play and run the channels?
You need them both, Mike. For me, because obviously Arsenal got enough players when they're playing into the box, cutting it back. You need somebody that... When's the last time you saw Arsenal score a proper one, out of the blue, striker, bam, just have a shot from 25 yards or something like that? We're not seeing that goal.
But we all talk about Ollie Watkins and we say, well, what's the secret to you scoring as many goals as you have done this season? And he says, the managers told me to stay in the 18-yard box. Yeah. Haaland, penalty box player, really. I mean, out at Dortmund, he did a lot outside the box, but... at City is inside the box. And that's what's making me think that's what Arsenal are lacking.
You can have both, though, can't you? I mean, I'd argue that Haaland can do both. It's just you don't get the opportunity to do one of them at Man City because everybody sits on the edge of their 18-yard box and you don't get any space in behind. And talking to Man City, I just feel as if we're actually talking about something we were talking about a couple of years ago with Haaland. I mean, Manchester City didn't have a striker, really. They did have Aguero. He was coming to the end, but he wasn't playing in that last season, really. Yeah. And everybody was saying, well, they're winning the league without a centre-forward. They're playing so well without us. Is it going to change the apple cart a little bit? They went and got him, and they've not looked back.
You have to adapt.
I said, I was a little...
What did you say, Kils?
I was just going to say it again because nobody laughed. I said, how did it get on? It was a little joke. I didn't say it was a good one.
Excuse me, the thing with... really good point. Really good point. You think, why does City need to pay for him? Because that is available. And you put that in the City side and you're getting what we're seeing now. We're still seeing City do their stuff because people like Foden's gone supernova. We know what De Bruyne is going to do. Rodri, Doku's come in and he's going to bring a whole new entity to the way they attack. You bring a striker in that can come in who's got the necessary skill set to fit into that and then bring that goal out of the blue, that, you know, you get one on the edge of the box and turn and you just shoot. You know, that kind of goal. Not the one where you build it up to the line, cut it back. The goal, what's going to make you go, bam, we've got one out of nowhere. Now we can just play and open them up more. That is the kind of striker. And I probably think that he's the person that could probably do that.
The hard thing, I think, for Arsenal at the moment is not to be desperate for it. Yeah. It has to be the right person. Yeah. You don't want to be wasting 70, 80, 100 million on something that's not quite there because of desperation. Yeah, and I think Wright is right. Haaland came available. Right, we cannot afford to miss this. Whereas at the moment, can you get some of the players that would be good for Arsenal? Arguable. But then you look maybe a rung lower where you could get it. I would avoid that. They're doing fine as they are. I mean, and I would avoid that. So it's only if that real top one that's going to make the big difference. Don't be desperate. Bide your time. And when you're ready to pounce, just don't miss. Go and get the best.
So the squad is good enough now as it is, and anything that comes in has to be able to make it stronger rather than taking a gamble.
Because, I mean, look, someone like Tony at Brentford, he's available. Do you go and get somebody like that when there's question marks? Is he going to be able to up his game? Has he got the class to come off and do all the things?
Is he the right personality for someone like Mikel?
You need the right personality.
So many
all
things.
of these things. So there will be players out there that are very good that people say, just go and get him, Mikel, go and get him. And he might be the answer, don't get me wrong, but all I'm saying is there will be players that are desperate to walk to Arsenal now and that will become available. But I would just bide my time and wait for that right person. And if that right person is going to cost a lot of money, then fine. If he's not available now and it's next year, then fine. But don't waste your bullet because money doesn't grow on trees.
Because Liverpool did that defensively with Van Dijk.
Exactly.
They waited, and that season they were letting goals in because they didn't come until the January, if I remember rightly. And loads of people, some of my colleagues said, you know, look, there must be defenders out there that can improve Liverpool rather than waiting for this one guy. But when he came, he had a transformative effect.
Yes.
Likewise, Alisson as well in goal. And when you do get the right player, he's there for years because you know you can rely on him. His injury record, his consistency in front of goal, his temperament in the dressing room, all of the things that you were suggesting they could bring to a side, that right player is going to be able to bring.
Real contrast in emotions from the Etihad to the Emirates, but for the first time in the men's game in the top division in England, a team has won the title 4 seasons in a row. People have tried before, back to the 1930s, great Liverpool teams, Manchester United teams as well, but nobody has done it. It is quite an achievement. It's an achievement as much as mentality and drive as skill, isn't it, Owen, to win 4 in a row?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's an incredible achievement. I think when you win one, there's always a few in the dressing room that let loose a little bit and take the foot off the gas. No shame in that at all, by the way, because you want to celebrate. You work hard as a kid to get to that position to win. The trick is not to take your foot off the gas, because the ones that do, then they get weeded out. You know, that's what Sir Alex would have done. He said, no, we don't want one-hit wonders. You know, we want people who are going to keep doing it. And that's why you got to refresh. So to do it for 4 years in a row is remarkable, because it's really, really difficult to win over 38 games. So credit to those guys. The consistency to be a champ, time and time again, and refresh a team with new players, new tactics, winning the Champions League with 4 centre-backs. Pep's the greatest innovator. And I think we've seen that. But to keep doing it, you know, we saw Doku emerge this season, Phil Foden. It's been absolutely out of this world this season. So I like that about Pep's teams. Every year they play different, but they still find a way to win.
And there's always somebody chasing them as well. It's been Liverpool, now it's Arsenal. So it's not like they've won 4 in a row, Karen, and it's been easy and no one's got near them because they've got the best players and a genius manager. There's somebody pushing, and we'll see in a second statistically, there's somebody pushing them to the wire every time. Even if it isn't to the wire, everybody wants to beat them anyway. There's always a target on the back, even the teams that are not going to try and win the Premier League. You know, that's the hardest thing. Winning one, as we said, it's tough, but as Owen said there, it's tough to do it because of just the target on your back. It's everyone raises their game 10%, and when you win the first one, you're chasing somebody else. When you're there at the top, you're doing this the whole time, looking over your shoulder, and that's the hardest thing because you know Arteta's coming, you know Klopp was always coming for you, and to just try and keep them at bay is tiring, and you've got to have that energy and that motivation to keep them going. Let's just have a look at the statistics, because it's worth having a look at. And we've never had this in the top division in England, that you need this many points to get close to winning the title. So they got 100 points in 2017-18. 2018-19, they got 98 points. I mean, Liverpool were getting high 90s but couldn't win the title. A couple of seasons ago, when Liverpool got 92 points, Manchester City got 93. Now they've got 91 and they've won by 2. Basically, what we're saying, Owen, is you need 90 points to be considered. Well, Man City or whoever, Liverpool, Arsenal, whoever. You need 90. You need 30 wins, roughly.
Well, that's why they're pretty much unbeatable in over a 38-game season. Yeah. Because they're going to lose, 3 games? And all the other teams... What did Man United lose this season? 13, 14 or something? So for these guys in a Premier League season, they're going to lose. They might have 2 or 3 hiccups. That's it. You know, and then they're going to go on a 10, 15-game run to finish the season because they can be consistent. So I'm amazed, actually, Liverpool and Arsenal has pushed them as hard as they have. I think Arsenal finishing second is an amazing achievement. Honestly, I know people probably think I'm ridiculous for saying that, but I think they've pushed them with a younger squad, without the same depth. Wage bill is dramatically less. So I think if they can continue to improve, and eventually Pep leaves, then they can probably.
They all want.
Yeah, but I think that while he's here with that group of players, I just don't think that you can beat them.
And they have an ability, don't they? Wherever, I mean, they're often not top at Christmas, Man City, are they? No. They're just not. They don't panic. Might be March, and then they go, OK, now we go. I mean, they haven't lost a league game since December, and they're unbeaten in 35 in all competitions. But come the spring in England, wherever they are, they just go, right, almost without saying it. We know what we need to do now. We go.
Well, it's experience.
Yeah.
You know, you heard a lot of them today. You know, we've done this final game of the season a couple of times now. We know how to do it.
To move from one position to another, which obviously comes down from the manager, but then to perfect it for the good of the team is just amazing. All goes through this man Pep who's on your screen now. The amount of times he challenges people to do better.
Since when you get... Mentioned Phil Foden. He's won 6 titles already at the age of 24. No one's won that many that young at this stage. Let's have a look at his goals, though. Has he taken his game to another level this season?
Yeah, Phil is so unique. This goal, if you could create a more Phil Foden goal, I couldn't think of one. Receive it on his back foot, open out. 99% of players are going to go back to where the ball came from. Opens out, opens a pitch up, and smashes it into the roof of the net. Absolute clean as a whistle. The first touch and the finish. I mean, he is that's your player of the year right there. You know, he's absolutely been whether he plays wide...
Well, that's my next question. Has he shown that now he should be playing centrally all the time?
Yeah, and he's probably taken the mantle off. You know, it was De Bruyne's, and rightly so, because he was the best. But even this goal, just slows down, sits in that little pocket, passes it into the goal. You know, what he's been able to achieve and add to with his finishing this season, I'm blown away by him.
I don't think I've seen a smoother player. He's just so silky, isn't he? I know Bernardo and David Silva maybe, but I don't know, like, he's just so smooth in everything he does, and those are his stats. And I think Kevin De Bruyne said it earlier today, he's won us the league. He literally, like I said, you know, you didn't have Haaland, you didn't have Kevin De Bruyne. Someone, Gundogan, you lost a lot of players as well last season that picked up a lot of goals and assists, but this guy's gone, I'll do it for you. And at a young age, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to say, it's like when you're trying to get into a team, oh, give me an opportunity. But then when the opportunity comes, to actually grasp it as he has and gone, right, you know, I could play out there, tend to be left, but actually, I'm now ready. De Bruyne is getting towards the end. I'm now ready to play centrally and I'll run the game.
It's taken time, hasn't it?
Yes.
And, you know, they always said to me, you know, you always kind of stay out wide until you're mature enough to come into that central area because it's such a responsibility. And he has had to bide his time. He's had to grow, learn, wait for other people. But you're right, he's got it, he's taken it, and I don't see him... I don't think... You think now Bernardo's gone out there.
Yeah.
He's gone in there. Do you know what I mean? So that's even a massive compliment in itself, isn't it?
I think he can go again, Phil. I don't think he's reached his peak. And I think the reason Pep maybe had an issue with him playing century, people don't understand how quick Phil is. You know, speaking to people at the club, because he's a ball player, he's a beautiful technician. He's one of the quickest players in that squad. So when you're quick, what tends to happen is you're trying to get into those gaps, but actually... You know, I think he can go again. He's only going to get better. And to have the success he's had, his confidence is going to grow, and he's going to become even more unplayable.
You wouldn't back against him next year, would you? I'm sorry to say that for everybody who wants a different name on it, but you simply wouldn't back against them, would you?
No. Again, they're probably they'll get better in the summer. Their recruitment's amazing. You know, Pep's probably going to...
Well, there you are. Gvardiol, who's really come onto his game, hasn't he, in the last
And he's a
few months?
centre-back. You know, he's been a revelation at left-back, so...
Not many players in their first season have good seasons at City. They're kind of warm, and then they go on 2 or 3 seasons later and being... But he's grown and grown, and goals as well.
Haaland scored 27 goals. I was saying to Owen before we came on air... But it almost feels like he's had a fairly middling season, doesn't it?
A quiet 27.
But it feels that way, doesn't it? Last season when he scored 40, you were like, wow, Haaland's extraordinary. This is like, all right, he scored 27, but, you know, he's been missing a bit. You're thinking, if he scored 27 goals and he's been quiet, I mean, what are the... You know, it's limitless what he could be potentially next year.
Just because of what he did last season, though, isn't it? You know, when you set the bar. But he was fit all season, wasn't he? And available and... Like you said, it's just when you've given everybody, showed everybody your levels. But But he probably would have got there. But he has missed a few, hasn't he? We were speaking off air, and sometimes a little bit uncharacteristic, but it's not bad, 27.
Not bad at all. So 6 titles in 7 seasons for Pep Guardiola and for Manchester City. And, of course, at the start of that run, on his bench, one of his assistants was, of course, Mikel Arteta, who said after the game at the Emirates today, I thought this was a really good quote, Owen, "No one needs to tell me what we need to do. I was there at the beginning." In other words, I've sat on the City bench, I know how good they are. So there you go, there he is with his wife. And last season, they were in a great position. They collapsed in April. No collapse this season. They've dropped 5 points this calendar year. They've dropped 5 points so they're 1 defeat and 1 loss this year. They know the standards. He looks pretty rueful, but it must be a very different emotion to this time last year, surely, a much more positive emotion.
Yeah, but you can tell he's a winner. I'm sure deep down he'll be really proud when he goes home with the family and they sit and reflect on the season and what they've been able to build. Not yet achieve as such, because they haven't won the trophies yet, but I think they only need one more step. And now he needs backing, Mikel. I think Eddie's done an amazing job in the market, getting the right players in at the right prices. Declan, even though he costs a lot of money, he made them better. Now they need a deeper squad. Now they need a centre-forward. Now they need a left-back. Now they need another central midfield player. But I trust him, Mikel, and I love the speech that he gave there. And he wasn't smiling, it was all cheerleader stuff. It was, "We need you, thanks for being patient, but we're going to get there." And I believe him. I think they will. They just got to stick with him for a few years, build the squad up, and they're going to win some trophies.
I mean, you played at Arsenal, you know that. I thought the fact they all look really distraught, I think, as Owen says, is a good sign, is it? None of this, we're happy runners up, we've done well here. It's like, no. But my question is a simple one. Is this now the hardest step? He's taken them from out of Europe to the edge of the Champions League, to into the Champions League, to almost winning the league. Those are all big steps. But is this still the biggest yet to come, to go from second to first?
Yeah, I was just going to say silver to gold is sort of second to first is the hardest, because to go from there to there is a big jump. You can make that, but that bit is the toughest, because, like, what is it? What is that thing that's going to get? Is it a centre forward? Is it actually just that we're a year more experienced? Is it that we've just got to believe a little bit more? That we don't lose to Aston Villa. When we're at that final push, we keep going. So he said in his interview, didn't he, "I'm going to go away and reflect." And that's probably the right thing to do. But there's no question about it, they'll push, and I think they'll push even harder next year.
Absolutely.